Hey everybody, this is Diane. Hello and welcome back to Biters.
And this is Marnell, and M-O-O-N, that spells biters.
I was going to say, welcome to the 2021 Drunk History Edition. Because I can't get my cork back in the bottle of Merlot, so I have to let it breathe.
What's on tap for you?
It is Sterling Vintner's Collection Merlot, which is sourced from selected vineyards around California.
You know, usually Merlots are just a little too bitter for me, but this coming from the girl who is drinking Silt Milk Stout from Devil's Club Brewery, and I'm eating it out of a drinking it. I'm drinking it out of a Satanic Temples mug.
So that actually sounds phenomenal. I wish I could drink fizzy things. I just can't tolerate fizzy things as well as I used to, but I love stout.
Oh, it's delicious. It is so smooth. And I'll have to post a picture of their growlers. I absolutely...
I'm assuming if it's Devil's Club Brewery, it must be a local brewery.
It is, yes.
Very cool.
They have these amazing growlers that have that like self-sealing lid, you know, that little pop top thing.
Yeah, like a Grolsch bottle has.
Yeah. But it's kind of shaped like a genie should be in the bottle. And it's just amazing. I'll have to post a picture to Biters.
Oh, very cool.
With my Satanic Temple mug.
So are you drinking out of your pot-bellied mug, or are you drinking out of your new Krampus mug?
My new Krampus mug.
Oh, do you love it?
I love it.
Yay. All right, so I decided, and you were kind enough to go along with me, that for Biters in most of the remaining in all of the remaining time that we have left, and then there's going to kind of be some overlap, I think, that we're going to do the 9 episodes of the new version of The Stand that has been released for CBS All Access.
Right.
So tonight we're doing...
You've got to get another streaming service.
Right. So tonight we're doing episode 1. The good news is for the, 1994 version of The Stand, you do not have to get another streaming service. Marnell assured me that I can purchase it for $5. If it's my first purchase from Vudu, V-U-D-U, it's like, what'd you say, 30% off?
Yeah, so it's $3.66.
So there you go. You can purchase all of the 1994 series of The Stand, which is like a 6-hour miniseries, for $3.66 if you don't already have Vudu.
Yeah, because it's only on Vudu. It's not like on Amazon or anything for purchase. So you have to either own the VHS from 1994 or probably the Laserdisc from like 2001.
So I'm down with it. I'm enjoying this enough that I'm down with watching that. And we'll talk a little bit more about why I'm down with watching that, because I think you're part of it.
Well, but you are also reading the book, so you're one-upping me on this one.
Well, and I'm going to just disclose to people right away, and we may have talked about this on Biters before, I'm not sure. I actually read the book like probably 35 years ago. You know, I went through the whole teenage 1980s, I'm totally into Stephen King thing. So I read a whole bunch of Stephen King books, like one after the other, and as new ones came out. And then I fell off. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that he's written since probably the late 80s that I haven't read.
See, and since then, I was a teenager, and I went through a moody teenage phase where I watched all of the movies and miniseries that were Stephen King had made out of his books. So, you know, I guess just, you know, different generations.
That is so funny. You know, I would have to say, so... And of course, we're not talking about The Stand yet, but everybody who listens to Biters knows that we wander all over the map anyway. Probably the ones that stick the most in my head, book-wise, Pet Sematary, and, what was the one that was made into a movie with James Caan and Kathy Bates? Misery.
Misery, yeah.
Yeah. Those are probably the ones that stick the most in my head. I remembered liking The Stand. It took me a little bit to get back into it, and now I'm probably 70% through it, and it's a huge book. It's like a 900-page book. So I'm loving it.
And, of course, for me, it's always going to be Children of the Corn and It.
I don't think Children of the Corn is a Stephen King book, is it?
It is.
Is it really?
I swear to God it is.
Oh my God, now I'm totally going to have to Google it.
I'm going to be really upset at myself if I am wrong.
I don't think it is.
Stephen King.
Oh my God, I did not realize that. That is so funny.
You know, and the reason why I think it's probably at the forefront of my mind is because in The Stand, Abigail Fremantle lives in the middle of a giant cornfield, and so there's corn in everybody's dreams, and I'm just always like, oh my God, Children of the Corn.
So it's actually a short story by Stephen King. It's not even a big... It's not a novel. It's a short story from The Night Shift.
Which is really funny because there was the original Children of the Corn, and then there was like 2 or 3 terribly, awfully good bad sequels. They were so bad, they're on a level of good that like other things just will never achieve. And then there was like 2 or 3 remakes of the original that were just terrible. I mean, they weren't terrible good, they were terrible bad. So like for it being a short story, I think probably other than Misery and I guess maybe now it's one of his bigger ones. I was like, no, only Stephen King can do creepy kids like Children of the Corn.
Interesting.
There's a lot of movies that, because I have a friend who is a huge Stephen King novel fan. And there's a lot of books and movies by Stephen King that I did not realize were Stephen King. And of course we've since had like movies like The Dark Tower and everything come out, which like have obvious tie-ins with his other movies / books, you know, and if you look hard enough in any of the movies or books, there's always little crossovers like that. Like there's always reference to Derry and Castle Rock, and you know there's corn, and you know there's Pennywise pops up in like a couple of incarnations, and just like, and it'll just be like a background, you know, poster for a circus, and it's obviously Pennywise, you know, like he ties it in all the time. And then of course he makes cameo appearances in all of his films and all of the miniseries,
which apparently he makes a cameo in this as well. I was just reading that tonight.
Yep, it's coming.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's, you know, it's so funny because this has made, and listening to you has made me realize how much I've missed after I dropped off in the mid to late 80s. I did read the book that he wrote about time travel and the Kennedy assassination, but I can't say that I was like, oh, this is a phenomenal book, I'm so glad I read it. But going back and rereading The Stand, I'm like, okay, it was a great book the first time, it's great the second time, I'm so glad I'm rereading it.
And how weirdly relevant is it right now?
Oh my God, we're going to talk about that. Of course we're going to talk about that.
We have to talk about that.
All right, so we're talking about episode 1, which is called The End, and it was first released on CBS All Access on the 17th of December, so quite recently. And there are going to be 9 episodes in this version of The Stand, and they are being released weekly on Thursdays.
Boo!
Boo because they're being released weekly, or boo because it's a Thursday?
Boo because the original miniseries was 4 parts, so...
Oh, so they must have been like an hour and a half a piece?
Oh, yeah.
Because you said it was 6 minutes, or 6 hours long.
6 hours,
so.
Yeah. And so 4 parts, so they were like mini movies every week for 4 weeks. And boo, because they're releasing 9 episodes at 1 week, so I have to wait 9 weeks. I can't binge it. Like, they do realize that we all have the attention span of TikTokers now. So
not all of us have that attention span. Some of us are good. Some of us are old.
There's more of us than there are of you.
You know, you're probably right, because attrition, you know, 50-year-old people, I'm 50 now, 50-year-old people die of heart attacks all the time.
Yeah.
All right, what was your rating?
Okay.
Okay, let's preface it by saying I know that you didn't like it as well as I did. I know you don't like it as much as you do the 1994 production. What was your rating?
Okay, and I will also preface this by saying we are podcasting this 4 weeks into the viewing of The Stand, so I am current.
Oh, so you've watched episode... don't ruin it for me because I haven't watched episode 4 yet.
I won't ruin it. I will say, for me, this is the absolute worst episode.
Really?
I absolutely hated it. I went into this not wanting to like it. And my ratings will improve over time, I promise you. But this episode, I gave a 2.5 messed up cornfields.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That's why I had to preface it, because I have seen episode 3, which makes a lot of things better, and episode 4 is great. So just going into it, I hated it.
Okay, so I will say, as I just said, I liked it a lot better than you did. I don't have the 1994 version in my lexicon yet. And I didn't go into it with any expectations, so I'm really happy with it. I give it 4.895 gallons of snot out of 5.
Oh. That is one thing between the 1994 version and this version, is in the 1994 version, all of the people who were dying of Captain Trips looked like they were already dead and they were zombies, and now they just have this horrible, like, mucus face. Ugh.
Okay, so I have something to say about that too. We'll get there.
Okay.
So I have a few numbers. It's hard to really track down any numbers because this is a series on CBS All Access, and because it's not something where it's getting released and there's money being tracked. So I've got its IMDb rating and its Rotten Tomatoes rating. So it's got a 6.9 rating on IMDb. It is considered rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got a 56%. It's got 6.4 out of 10. And I will tell you that I've read a couple of reviews. I haven't read tons of reviews, and the reviews have been terrible. So,
I feel vindicated.
Well, and I'm kind of like, what am I missing? Because I'm really enjoying it. Maybe it's just hitting me in the right space at the right time. I don't know. Oh my God.
This is going to be so interesting, because I thought that my loathe of the first couple of episodes was just because I love the 1994 version so much. So having you watch this version first and then the 1994 version is going to be super interesting.
We'll have to do a Biters update after I watch it.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it's just a quick update in, like, housekeeping or something.
Mm-hmm.
I know what I was going to say. That reminds me of what I was going to say. So, and then I just lost it again. And it's not even because I'm that far into my Sterling Vintner's bottle of wine. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Now I remember it again. So I felt the first time I watched this episode, I was really hooked in. The second time I watched it, I was still really hooked in, but I was like, okay, I can see how this is, like, building a lot of story, but it's not like this phenomenal, amazing, oh my God, I'm sucked in episode. I mean, maybe if I hadn't known the story and hadn't been kind of excited because I knew the background, I might not have been that into it. because it really is a story building kind of episode.
We'll get into it, my bad.
Okay, very good. All right, so the title is The End, which is really funny because it made me think of the end as the beginning in Fear the Walking Dead. I don't really have anything to say other than that. I mean, it's sort of the end of civilization, but the end is the beginning.
It is.
So just very quick information because there's not tons out there, writer and director. So, of course, our primary writer is Stephen King. What I will say about Stephen King is that he is amazing on Twitter, but if you're not a lefty like us, don't follow him because you'll be annoyed. But, oh my God, he's so funny on Twitter. So the writers of this particular episode, and of several of the episodes actually, are Josh Boone and Benjamin Cavell. I hope I'm saying his name right. It's Cavell.
That's how I'd pronounce it.
Oh my gosh, and that's so funny. I wrote tons of stuff down about Josh Boone and nothing about Benjamin Cavell. So I'm going to quickly open IMDb. So Josh Boone is actually one of our writers and also our director. He has 6 writer credits. I only really recognized 3 of them. So he has a credit that's upcoming for The Talisman, which actually
another Stephen King property.
I was just going to say, so it's actually Stephen King and Peter Straub, and I remembered that they had written several things together back in the 80s and the 90s. And then, of course, this. And then the New Mutants, which Jamie from Radio Free Endor and from the Capes and Lunatics podcasts that we've done, Jamie mentioned that they were reviewing... Or was it Nick? Maybe it was Nick.
I think it was Nick.
He talked about how they were going to be reviewing the New Mutants. The thing that I will point out about the New Mutants is that Maisie Williams is in it, who played Arya, right?
Right.
So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I have not watched. Interested, it just has not gotten bumped to the top of my list.
So the question that I have, and I feel kind of dumb asking this question because I was a big X-Files, or not X-Files, X-Files too, but X-Men fan back in the day. Is the New Mutants connected to X-Men at all?
Same. I think it's the same.
Is it the same universe? Okay.
Yeah. It's, pre and post pubescent kids going through their changes as far as discovering their mutant powers.
But that was like X Factor back in the day. So it must have been after I had fallen off from being a comic book reader. And I'm trying to be a comic book reader again. And I'm partway through the first graphic novel of The Boys and really enjoying it. But I'm just not a good serial comic book reader like I was when I was a teenager. I'm just not.
Yeah. There's just way too much on TV for me to be.
Well, and really frankly, and this sounds whiny, and I know I whine all the time about working so much, but I'm so busy with work. And then the little bit of time that I do have off, I'm either podcasting or reading, and I'm usually reading a novel.
Yeah, and I'm doing that thing where not only am I working a lot, but I'm also rewatching a lot of the stuff that I've already watched. And I honestly, at the beginning of the pandemic, I saw a thing that was like, oh, we're all doing that because it's comforting because we know how it ends and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
I just do it because it's comforting anyway.
I just do it because I really enjoyed the series. So
really, honest to God, so having watched The Mandalorian now and being totally into it, I'm like, I've watched both seasons and I'm kind of like, should I rewatch it? There's part of me that kind of wants to rewatch it.
Definitely rewatch it. So, have
you watched it yet?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I always go back to, every couple of years I'll go back and I'll rewatch Buffy, the Vampire Slayer. I knew you were going to
say that. I totally knew you were going to say that.
And now it's also Game of Thrones, but the one I'm watching right now, and it's directly related to, because The Stand is out, the new one, is I'm rewatching True Blood
because of Alexander Skarsgård.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Who I'm sure will be one of our featured cast at some point.
It definitely is going to have to be, yes.
All right, so Benjamin Cavell has 6 writer credits: The Stand, SEAL Team, which I think we've talked about before, because I think there's some either Fear the Walking Dead crossover, or some Walking Dead crossover.
Well, it's got David Boreanaz in it from Buffy.
Oh, well, there you go. Homeland, which I have now been advised after this week's coup attempt that I should watch. Have you watched that?
I have not, but it has Claire Danes
in
it.
I really like. So, and Mandy Patinkin, who I know you love on TikTok. So
Yeah, well, I mean, Princess of the Bride and Criminal Minds, and now TikTok. Mandy Patinkin on TikTok is hilarious.
And he has also written for Justified, which I know your other half likes. I have never gotten into it, but I've heard great things about it.
Yeah, I really need to get into Justified at some point someday, because Timothy Oliphant.
Right. Who I wonder if we will see in The Mandalorian again.
One can hope.
One can hope. Which, by the way, I have this awesome little stuffed animal that I actually bought one for my friend's kid, and she's in love with it, and she named him Puff. Puff the Purple Dragon, I think that's his name. And I was like, I'm so in love with that, I'm totally going to see if they still have any more of them, and I'm going to buy one for myself. And I found him, and his name is Mando. And so every now and then, Mando sends selfies to this little girl and says hello. Aww. So... all right, sorry, I could go on about The Mandalorian forever. And if you guys are interested in Star Wars stuff, our friend Jamie from the UK does Radio Free Endor, and I have just started listening to his coverage of The Mandalorian, so there we are. Very quickly about Josh Boone as a director. So he's done directing for The Stand, he directed the new Mutants, he directed The Fault in Our Stars, which I know was like a really big millennial movie. I am so old and lame that I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's one of those... And we'll talk about it when we talk about James Marsden, because I didn't see The Notebook. It's just not a movie for me.
Wasn't Nicholas Hoult, or however you say his name, in The Fault in Our Stars?
Yeah.
And he was in Warm Bodies.
Oh, Nicholas Hoult.
Was he?
I don't think so.
I'm totally at IMDb. We can check this out. Sorry, the Biters ladies are drinking. This is the Drunken History edition. So...
Is it ever not?
Well, for me, it's typically not, but...
It's been a week this month.
Yes, it has totally been a week this month. You are absolutely right. He is not in it. Shailene Woodley is in it, and Laura Dern is in it, and Willem Dafoe is in it. Those are the 3 names that I recognize offhand. So...
The young man that's in it, though.
Ansel Elgort.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know him at all. Okay.
He is also in Divergent.
Oh, which Shailene Woodley was in those movies as well.
Yes.
Which I'm kind of bummed they didn't finish those, because the books were so good.
They were. The last couple of movies were pretty not great.
Okay, did you read the books? Or did you
listen
to that? You've read the books?
I read the books.
You read the books.
Yeah. I like YA novels. I can get into some of those. Yeah. I read The Hunger Games before it was popular. I read the Divergent series before it was popular. There's The Uglies, The Pretties, The Extras, The Specials. I can't remember the author of it.
Excuse me.
And then there's another series that there's there's a couple movies where I'm like, I'm pretty sure those are based on that young adult novel book, and I cannot, like, the original book I think is called Crashed, and it's basically about how at some point in the future, humans are going to be able to upload themselves into AI bodies. We're going to be able to, like, download our brains into...
Oh, you actually told me about that novel,
Yeah.
and I started it, and I'm sorry, I didn't finish it.
It's okay. But, like, it has a whole underlying message of, like, you know, what makes a human, and it goes into, you know, the robot people basically don't have any rights because they're not considered human, and so you kind of get into a whole kind of things that reflect current events a lot. So when it comes to, should they have the right for marriage, should they have the right to, you know, own property, and so you get into the whole, you know, feminist issues, Black Lives Matter, gay rights, things like that. It kind of puts that in its own little special.
Now, don't be getting all political on us. Save that for Real Housewives.
Real Housewives. I do read. It just takes a lot for me to get into a book or a series.
Well, you know, so there's a book, a series actually, but I'm reading the first book and I'm only partway through it, that a friend recommended about. The series is called The Expeditionary Force. I think I mentioned this. This is like, you know, aliens or giant hamsters. It's kind of like Starship Troopers meets giant hamsters.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this does sound familiar, but I can't remember that you were talking about this.
But I basically got about halfway through it. I'm like, oh, I'm so bored. So, and then I started reading The Stand, and now I'm ruined. So I may get back to it eventually. But I'm also at that point in my life where I'm 50, and I'm reclaiming my time. And if it's not keeping my attention, I'm moving on. All right. Speaking of moving on, let's talk about our featured cast.
So James Marsden, who plays Stu in the current version of The Stand,
Who I have to admit is terribly handsome.
He is. So the original character was played by Gary Sinise.
Oh, I like that.
Yes. So I really think that you're going to like the OG version. But I do have to admit that I was today years old
when you realized he was Cyclops?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
I was today years old when I realized he was Cyclops.
What? So
I know, right?
This is my love-hate relationship with James Marsden. So there is a movie that came out many a year ago that was called Disturbing Behavior. And I did not realize that James Marsden was the lead in Disturbing Behavior, but it had Katie Holmes and Nick Stahl in it also. And, like, the soundtrack to the movie was the soundtrack to my teen years. Like, I loved that movie, and I did not realize the young man in it was James Marsden.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Okay.
Because
I've never seen the movie, by the way.
James Marsden played Cyclops in the X-Men movie, and I loathed him.
Oh my God. So I thought he was a great Cyclops. I loathed him because that character is a jerk.
See, and I think that he just did a really good job of playing kind of a preppy jerk in the movie. And that's why I like, so he did a good job. So James Marsden was great in X-Men. I just hated Cyclops in the movies.
The thing that's kind of a bummer, I mean, having read the comic book for several formative years when I was in high school, Scott Summers is a much more sympathetic and interesting character than he was in the movies. He just is. I mean, he was a much more likable, much more interesting character than he was in the movies. He always had the competition with Wolverine. But yeah, I mean, Hugh Jackman was much more likable than the Scott Summers character was in the films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and like, he just, they made him like it was funny the scene when they are getting into his car and they turn it on and In Sync comes on. And I was just like, I knew there was a reason why I disliked him.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
In Sync was a little after my time, so it does not resonate with me. I don't mean to offend any In Sync fans out there. It's not my kind of music, and I had some predilection about what I thought NSYNC fans were like, and Cyclops fits. So yeah, but like I said, he was also in The Notebook. Not my kind of movie.
Honestly, I've never seen it.
Yeah, I've never seen it either. It's like a chick flick type thing, and just those don't work with me. But I do have to say, there are two movies that are kind of chick flicky that he's been in that I absolutely love. One of them being the updated version of the movie Hairspray.
Which I watched the original. I have not watched the reboot. Loved the original. Divine, of course.
Loved the original. And if you love Divine in the original, you will love John Travolta in drag.
I struggle with John Travolta because of his Scientology background.
I can totally see that. The other one is the movie Enchanted.
Hail Xenu.
Not because of Enchanted, but because of Scientology. Mm-hmm. Have you seen Enchanted?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so it's...
But it had a huge box office. I was looking at the numbers. $340 million.
Yes.
Huge.
It was this adorable little movie with Amy Adams, Patrick Dempsey, James Marsden, and Susan Sarandon, and Julie Andrews. And it was one of those that kind of...
And it's a retelling of which story? Is it Cinderella? Or is it kind of all of those fairy tales that we loved meshed together?
It is, yes. Okay. Absolutely.
Okay. And he plays Prince Charming, right?
Yes. Yes. Prince Edward, to be specific. And it meshes cartoon with real life. So I don't know why I love that movie, but whenever it's on cable, I have to watch it.
That's so funny because that really seems like a not Cold and Dead Inside kind of movie.
It is definitely not a Cold and Dead Inside movie. But I loved what he had to say about getting into costume. He loved the costume in Enchanted, but he said that it was a little difficult to work in because it's a big, bulky, like over the top, like princely costume. He's got the big, puffy shoulders and everything. But he was saying, oh my God, it took 10 to 15 minutes just to get into costume. And I'm like, oh my God, that's adorable. 10 to 15 minutes to get into your costume when, like, the women take, like, an hour
to
get into the ball gown,
Because we're lacing this up, and we're tightening that, and we're cinching this, and, yeah.
Yeah, like, if he only knew what Amy Adams probably had to go through to get into her giant Cinderella ball gown that she has to squeeze through a manhole in. Yeah. I just thought that quote was adorable.
I may need to watch this movie.
You do. So he does a lot of voice work too. For things like Robot Chicken, Cats versus Dogs. He was in the movie Hop, which that was another big box office one.
I'm such a loser. I've never even heard of it.
Let's see. Oh, one of his greatest roles to date, in my opinion, because it is an amazing, amazing series. Season 3 is just about to drop. Westworld.
I saw that he was in that.
Yes. Yes. It's the whole thing is absolutely amazing. And I'm a fan of the original Westworld too. So there is a kind of littler known TV series that's on Netflix currently. I think it's in season 3. Might be in only season 2. I'm halfway through the current season. I feel like there's been 3 seasons. It's called Dead to Me.
It's actually pretty well known.
You think so?
Yeah, it's gotten quite a bit of attention. I haven't watched it, but I've heard it mentioned a lot.
I really, really liked season 1. I didn't like season 2 as much. It's got Christina Applegate and Linda Cardinelli in it. And the interesting thing about James Marsden character is you don't think he's going to be in season 2 because, and this is what it's about, so I'm not spoiling anything here. His character is murdered in season 1, but his character has a twin brother.
Oh. That's pretty convenient.
Yeah. So if you
good gracious.
Sorry. If you find out he's been murdered in season 1, but you see that he's credited in season 2, it's not flashbacks, it's because he's a twin brother. So he is coming up, or he's in pre-production for Disenchanted, and he's playing Prince Edward again, so I'm assuming that is the follow-up to the movie Enchanted.
I saw that. I saw that they were planning on doing that.
And one of his other more current things that I have kind of tried to get into, but I can't, is called Miss America. And it is about the conservative activist Phyllis Schlafly.
Oh, interesting.
I really, really want to get into it. I've not been in the right mindset. So, one of the more interesting things about James Marsden is, do you know how he got his break in Hollywood?
No, but now I'm insanely curious about it.
He was on vacation in Hawaii with his family in 1991, and he ran into brother and sister actor and actresses Kirk Cameron and Candace Cameron Bure.
Oh, who is it? I don't know about Candace, but Kirk Cameron is a horrible human being. But okay.
She's not my favorite. Yeah. So I'm very, very glad that James is as down to earth and funny and everything as he is, because of where he has his immediate influences, or his original influences. So they got him a role on The Nanny. They got him an audition and a role on the TV series The Nanny. And even though that is not his first credit on IMDb, that was his first acting role. And I think it's because of the way that IMDb kind of lists things out, as far as because The Nanny was on for a few years, as to where, his other credits include Saved by the Bell, The New Class, In the Line of Duty, Ambush in Waco. And then there was a Canadian TV series that did one season called Boogie's Diner. Those are kind of his original acting jobs that kind of got him his original work, which led to some roles in things like Party of Five. He was in the movie Public Enemies. And he had a recurring role on the TV show Second Noah. And then, apparently, he got one of his biggest breaks in the movie Disturbing Behavior, which...
Your beloved movie.
Yes, my beloved movie. Him and Nick Stahl and Katie Holmes just do so well in that movie. It came out in 1998, which is the year I graduated, so... they were around the same age as me, so it sort of resonated with me. He was then, right before X-Men, he was in a movie called Gossip, which has a Walking Dead tie-in.
Oh, yeah?
Gossip also starred Norman Reedus.
Oh!
I have actually seen this movie. It's a very weird movie. Norman
Reedus is kind of a weird guy. I love him, but he's kind of a weird guy.
And it's got a really like random cast. So it's got James Marsden, Norman Reedus, Lena Headey.
Oh, who was in GOT?
Yes. And Kate Hudson.
Interesting.
So the plot behind this movie is 3 college students base their class project around how fast gossip spreads, and it soon spirals out of control. So it was just like a kind of a telephone game gone awry that turned into a thriller. It was a very weird movie. But then he did some smaller movies like Sugar and Spice, which is a funny movie. If you have not seen it, he had a small role in the movie Zoolander.
Oh, really?
He did. He played John Wilkes Booth in the flashback of male models being used to murder high-powered people in the world.
So, he is billed as an actor, singer, and model, so that's really funny.
Yes. So, Ally Mcbeal, he was in the first season of Ally Mcbeal from 2001 to 2002. And that's actually where he kind of got his big break in kind of being an actor, singer, dancer, that type of thing. If anybody remembers the quirky weirdness of Ally Mcbeal in the late 90s, early 2000s. I felt like it was earlier in the 90s, but I guess it was 2001 to 2002.
It was kind of never my thing.
It was weird.
I'm not judging. It just wasn't my thing.
I don't know why I liked it so much. I look back and I'm like, she saw a dancing baby. Like, she was actively hallucinating, like, all the time.
Huh.
So, of course, then he was in X-Men and, what was the other one? Oh, Superman Returns. Which
we talked about a lot in the context of Wonder Woman, and I was like, I'm not going to tell anybody I don't remember Superman Returns. I know I watched it. I have zero memory of it because it was that not memorable.
Exactly. I feel exactly the same way. But so his 2 movies, Hairspray and Enchanted, are other places that he actually has singing credits for. So if you go on his IMDb, he's credited for songs on Hairspray and Enchanted, and he just does amazing at actor, singer, dancer.
So I'm going to tell you something super funny. He was married to a woman who was credited for being an actress on Days of Our Lives.
Oh, my goodness.
Until 2011. They divorced in 2011.
Yeah, he has 2 kids by her and a third child from a previous or subsequent relationship. I can't remember.
Sorry, Smalls is being god-awful, and I'm not sure why.
So the only other movie that I think I will probably mention is a movie that he did with Cameron Diaz in 2009. It's called The Box.
Which he got quite a bit of acclaim for that.
So it is a very Twin Peaksy movie. Like,
oh, interesting. Okay.
I will just have to say that you have to keep a very open mind about what is going on in that movie. To this day, I'm still unsure whether I liked it or not. Like, I have very mixed feelings about just how weird it got.
Reclaiming my time. Not gonna watch it.
It was certainly original. So he keeps a very low profile. He does not, he flies coach He's keeps his family very down to earth. He only has one social media, and that is Instagram, and he is at James_Marsden on Instagram. But other than that, he does not want to be a blockbuster actor. He picks and chooses the roles that he takes because he wants to do them and he enjoys the work.
Well, I love him in this role. I know you're not in love with this, although it sounds like you're getting more interested in it as we go. I love him in this role.
Yeah, it's growing on me, and I think because I idolized the original version and the entire cast in the original version, it is very hard to hold a candle to that. So, and it's not because of James Marsden. I apparently have loved him since 1998. Except that weird Cyclops thing he did.
Again, don't blame him. They just portrayed Scott Summers as a horrible person.
Yes. Absolutely, I agree. So the only other thing that I would love to say about James Marsden is two things. He is not related to Josh Marsden, but they are very good friends. And he actually rehearsed for, I'm not, sorry, not rehearsed, but went out for a role in full drag. So in 2007, he dressed in drag for an audition to play Penelope Cruz's drag queen best friend in Woman on Top. He went to 20th Century Fox dressed from head to toe in heels and dress.
Good for him!
He let his wife dress him.
That's awesome!
So I think he's a very fun and down-to-earth guy, and yeah, he was in a lot more than I remember him being in, which is the sign of a good actor because I see the character and not James Marsden.
Yeah, he had tons of credits.
Yeah.
All right, well, I don't have lots in Whisperer's Corner, so we'll blast through that pretty quickly. Screen Rant did have an article. They really are still talking about a comedic spin-off in the Walking Dead universe, which I continue to be horrified about.
Ditto.
Yeah, I'm just not okay with that.
No.
Yeah, no, there are moments that Eugene is funny and I'm good with that. It's not a comedy. Yeah, no.
Yeah. No.
So, Scott Gimple had better not jack this up, and I'm trying not to use foul language because we don't have clearance to be explicit on biters.
I am just they are already so close to jumping the shark and outliving their welcome that I'm just like, just don't, please.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. There was an announcement that there are 2 additional cast members in 10C. So an actor named Miles Musadin, I hope I'm saying his name properly, who is known for Army Wives, Revolution, and Mr. Mercedes, which is actually a Stephen King property. And Rodney Roland, who is known for Veronica Mars, X-Files, NCIS, Twin Peaks, and CSI. It's not announced who they are going to play. It is speculated that they are going to play early saviors. So possibly in like the Negan Lives / Lucille episode. Supposedly, another news item, the Walking Dead movie will have an R rating. So that'll be interesting. Samantha Morton put out a bunch of tweets right around New Year's that she was hospitalized, and it's not clear why she was hospitalized. She had those couple of head bleeds a couple of years ago. There's some speculation because of the way that she tweeted and the thanks that she gave that perhaps she was hospitalized with COVID, but I could not find anything additional. So, here's from biters to Samantha Morton because I know she listens. I hope she's doing okay.
I do too, because I have to say that because I'm a fan of hers from Harlots, and so when I heard she was having those brain bleeds, that's incredibly scary.
Yeah, as someone who's had one, yeah, very scary.
Yeah.
I will say on the COVID thing, and I don't want to get political because, again, this isn't the Real Housewives, but I actually had a Facebook post from a friend of mine this week, and he is a young, healthy man. He is a nurse. He has worked on the front lines, literally the front lines, since the pandemic started in the U.S. He now has COVID long hauler syndrome.
Oof.
So he's young, healthy, no underlying conditions. He can walk about 100 feet without passing out.
Oh.
Yeah.
That terrifies me.
Yeah. So, at the risk of getting political, please social distance, please wear a mask, please get vaccinated. I had my first COVID vaccine. I had a sore arm. That was it. I got the Pfizer vaccine, which is the one that has a higher incidence of allergic reaction. It's still very low, but higher than Moderna. I'm really glad I got it. I get my next one on Tuesday. I can hardly wait. I feel like I'm getting my life back.
Yeah. We recently just had our second COVID scare in this household. We were quarantined early last March. I think it was we were exposed to the second case that hit Juneau. And so I've been working from home since March. So I've been doing this nearly a year now. I'm loving it, but I'm also kind of sick of it. But last weekend before this weekend that we're currently in right now, we had some tertiary contact. We did the whole exchange gifts with a family member, and that family member recently lost their child. So it was closer contact than you would probably normally have in the pandemic, closer contact than we've had in the past 9 months. And so, we exchanged hugs and everything, and we spent about 2 hours talking, and only to come to find out that someone that they were in very close contact with recently tested positive for COVID right after they left our house. They found out. And so
you're quarantined.
The other half got sick a couple of days later. His COVID test just came back negative. So, so far, so good. We were joking because we tried a new recipe at dinner tonight, and he thought it tasted awful. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's not great, but it's not inedible.
Uh-oh.
And I'm like,
which one of you has COVID symptoms?
Right? I was like...
Remember, there can be false negatives.
Yes, and that's exactly what I said. I was like, I think we probably want to go get you a follow-up test.
Right.
So I have no symptoms, so I'm doing okay, but it's scary, you know?
can have it and have no symptoms. Remember that.
Yes, and I would be so grateful that if I ever get it, if I would be asymptomatic, because I have really terrible asthma, and the thought of going on a ventilator has terrified me my entire life. So, yeah.
The only other thing I have to say in Whisperer's Corner is that American Gods returns for season 3 on Starz this month. I have incredibly mixed feelings about it because the first season was great, the second season not so great, and they lost Gillian Anderson. The third season I'm deeply concerned about because they have lost Orlando Jones. They still have Ian McShane, they still have Ricky Whittle. I'm gonna watch it because I'm a giant Neil Gaiman fan. Struggling.
Yeah, I struggled with season 2. In fact, I don't even think I watched the last 2 episodes. It's entirely possible that I took a sleeping pill and watched them, but I don't remember them. So I may need to slog through a rewatch before I watch season 3. But I mean, I'm invested. So
yeah, so it comes out You might want to watch it. The only thing I have to say in Housewives housekeeping, which I think we both pretty much agree on, is I want to return my first week trial of 2021.
You know, I knew not a lot was going to change at the stroke of midnight on January 1st, but I had no idea we could go downhill. Oh.
We definitely have.
Yeah. I don't even know where we go from here. Like, if I would never have thought what happened last week could have happened last week. So I'm terrified to find out what comes this week.
Yeah.
Plague of rats. I don't know.
I'm sure there's a Stan episode about that. I know there's a plague of weasels in the book, so.
Yeah. The only thing that survives is our few humans, the rats, and the birds.
Right? Because even dogs and horses get taken out in the stand.
Yep. Except for Kojak.
All right. So, good, bad, and ugly. Why don't you go ahead and go first?
I had a very, very hard time finding a good for this episode.
That makes me so sad. I'm not surprised with your rating, but it does make me sad.
But there was one good in this episode, and it happened at the very, very end. I think I will actually like Alexander Skarsgård as Randall Flagg better than I liked the original actor who played Randall Flagg, who was Jamie Sheridan. No disrespect to Jamie Sheridan, but...
What else do I know Jamie Sheridan from?
I like me some Skarsgård boys, and they are great in Stephen King movies. Spotlight. Did you see Spotlight? Okay. If you have not seen Spotlight, Spotlight was an amazing movie. You should watch it. He was in Sully. I actually have never watched Sully, but it's based on the true story of the Miracle Landing on the Hudson. Yep.
Yeah.
He's in Homeland.
Boy, the name is just super familiar, but I'll be darned if I know why.
Of course, Law and Order.
Maybe I know him from that. Did he have just like a one episode, or was he a repeat guy?
Oh, he was a repeat. He was in 111 episodes, Law and Order Criminal Intent.
Oh, well, I never got into Criminal Intent.
Okay,
so.
NCIS. He was in like an episode.
I'm looking him up right now.
Okay. American Gothic. He was in the American Gothic, the new series, not the old series, and I don't think that they were related. They just happened to have the same name. I liked the original.
He's got a ton of actor credits.
Jumpin' Jack Flash?
Yeah, but boy, if he had a big episode or a big spot in that, I don't remember it. Of course, all I remember are Whoopi Goldberg and Jonathan Pryce.
Yeah.
So, no, don't remember the dude.
Chicago Hope?
No.
Yeah.
Video Voyeur, the Susan Wilson story.
I think I have watched that.
Oh my god, of course you have. That's hilarious.
That is so funny.
The 1994 TV movie My Breast.
Okay, I don't think I've watched that.
All right, anyway, bottom line, you think you probably are going to like Alexander Skarsgård better.
Yes. So, I can't remember his name. Alex Skarsgård's little brother played Pennywise in the new It movies for Stephen King.
I always think of... I think he's probably their dad. Is it Stephen Skarsgård? Stefan Skarsgård?
Yep. That's their father. And there's also another Skarsgård brother who's an actor too. But I cannot remember his name. Bill Skarsgård is the one who is in It, and he is also in another Stephen King property, Castle Rock, that's on Hulu.
Which I've heard. Have you watched that? Because I remember hearing it was quite good.
I watched like the first 4 or 5 episodes. It was good. I don't know why I fell out of watching it, because of course it has Bill Skarsgård and it also has Lizzie Kaplan, and Lizzie Kaplan, and I love Lizzie Kaplan. Sissy Spacek was in it, but I like very small role, I feel like, even though she was in 10 episodes. So was Tim Robbins. I feel like he had a bigger, maybe I just noticed him more. But I mean, it had such a great cast of characters, and of course it's Stephen King, so it's creepy and awesome. But I don't know why it lost me some point mid-season. I don't know, maybe it got a little like too hard to track. But yeah, so my good was, I think that I'm really gonna like the new Randall Flagg. Although I probably shouldn't mention it right now. I feel like it was in the because I'm watching the original 1994 version of The Stand, and like I said, it spans the full 6 hours, and the only way that it
you just totally faded out.
Oh, sorry.
There you go. Now you're back.
So I'm watching the original 1994 version, and I'm like halfway through, and the only way that it sort of breaks for the original 4 episodes is you have a title card that starts out, and I think I missed the title card that goes into the second episode, so I don't know, I can't remember, but one of the first times we see with Randall Flagg is when
he's in the back seat of the car.
Well, no, in the original is when he goes into the prison, and he has the greatest line. He tells Floyd, he says, "Pleased to meet you. Hope you guess my name."
That's awesome.
Floyd's like, "What?" And he's like, "Nothing, just a classical reference." And they didn't use that this time, and I'm so disappointed.
Oh.
So I just, like I said, I'm rewatching True Blood, and so Alexander Skarsgård is a great, lovable bad guy.
I think he's going to be a great Randall Flagg. I don't have the frame of reference for the first movie. I just have the book as my frame of reference, but I think he's going to be great.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get into it. I'm trying really, really hard not to go into the second, third, or fourth episode that I have already seen. So I'm trying to keep it to episode 1. So yeah, my only good was Alexander Skarsgård. So
I'm sorry that was your only good.
But
I'm glad that you're enjoying it more.
Yes. So what was your good?
So my good was actually Owen Teague, the guy who plays Harold Lauder.
Ah!
Because he is creepy AF. And he's actually way more creepy than Harold was in the book. I mean, Harold's creepy in the book, but Harold is also kind of bumbling and overweight and kind of a loser. And this Harold is like school shooter, Dylan Roof, Dylan Klebold, creepy.
Yes.
So I like the way that they've streamlined him. I like the way that they've made him more vile. And Owen Teague does a great job playing him. I'm sure that we may talk about him as a featured cast at some point.
We're definitely going to have to, because the differences between the characters in the original movie and this movie, or this show, like the original Harold is very dweebish,
which is kind of the way he is in the book.
Yeah, and in this version, he's just so much darker.
Yeah, he's really dark. So who plays him in the original? Is it somebody who is known?
So in the original, he is played by Corin Nemec, Nemec.
Sorry, nobody I'm familiar with.
Stargate SG-1, 90210. Let's see. Not a lot that I really recognize him in. A lot of kind of like B stuff. Oh, he's in Supernatural.
Huh.
He was in like 6 episodes of Supernatural.
God, someday I'm going to have to watch that.
Yeah, no, too late. Like,
I know, we've talked about it. There's like so many seasons, but someday I'm going to have to.
So I don't recognize him, but I was a fan of the Stargate SG-1 series. He played Jonas Quinn, but I don't feel like I recognized him. He had a reoccurring role for 3 episodes of Beverly Hills 90210. Oh, Parker Lewis Can't Lose. I remember that series.
I've never seen that.
1990 to 1993, so that doesn't surprise me. Oh my God, he was in Webster.
All right, but let's not detract from Owen Teague, who is a great, vile, scary Harold Lauder, so that was my good.
And, you know, that is a perfect description of him as, like, school shooter.
Well, and they actually kind of updated the references in the series. These are not references in the book. I'm assuming they were not references in the first movie. And they made the whole, like, you wrote that whole manifesto that made you seem like a school shooter.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, that is actually one of the notes that I have made is the Fran and Harold characters are much darker in this iteration.
So I am assuming that Molly Ringwald is Fran in the 94 series. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And what's funny is their relationship in this series is much more contentious. Like, Franny, like sympathized is the wrong word. She treated him like a little puppy a lot, you know, like she humored him and, you know, like she tried to keep him in the little brother role in the original series, and in this one she flat out like we'll get into it in later episodes, but
spoiler alert, but in the novel, she actually keeps a diary, and you get excerpts of her diary in the novel, and she really trashes Harold repeatedly in her diary, and he gets a hold of it and reads it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. They completely, like, put some rose-colored glasses on their relationship in the OG version.
Yeah, definitely not in the novel, and I don't think in this one either.
No, definitely not so far. Yeah.
All right, what was your bad?
So, my bad is, compared to the original version, we start off like completely in the middle of what goes on in the original version. I don't have the frame of reference for the book, but in the original version, there's a lot of story development and character development that happens over the first couple of hours of story. And in this one, we get straight to we're removing bodies from houses. And that's like 2-3 hours into the other one.
So I will tell you, and this was kind of writing potpourri stuff for me anyway, the book starts out with Campion, who is the soldier who flees from the contained facility. It totally starts out with him fleeing that facility.
You know, and
so they're not in Colorado. They're not removing bodies. It totally starts out. So I suspect that the 94 version is much more in line with the way the story is told in the book. Yeah. So
the 1994 version, the kind of opening credits the montage is like a whole bunch of, bodies of people who have like died in their cars and in grocery stores and sitting at their desks at work and things like that. So you know that obviously this pandemic is going on, but it's a much more linear storytelling after that. You get the army guy running into the pumps and, Stu getting exposed to him. And the story kind of takes it from there. And like I said, it's like 2 or 3 hours in before we're in Colorado and removing bodies from houses. And so I feel like they lost a lot of character development. And so one of my biggest problems is I don't care about these people. Like, we immediately jump into the middle of their stories, and then it's like, episode 2, 3, 4, we start getting some flashbacks.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Maybe I cared about them because I knew the story from the book.
Yeah, and I feel like in an upcoming episode, they actually, and I don't know if book reference, but they conflate 2 characters from the previous movie, and it's very confusing as a viewer who knows the first movie. And
okay, we'll have to talk about that.
Definitely. But I don't care as much about these people. I know less about their lives. And it just, that's part of the reason for my really low rating is we jump right into the middle of their story, and I haven't developed a relationship with them, and so I don't care about them.
So I will actually say that when I first started watching the miniseries, I was like, this isn't the Stand I remember. And then when I went back and started reading the book and I got a little further into the miniseries, I was like, oh, I'm okay with them starting it the way that they did.
It gets better.
I will tell you one of the things that's really interesting, and I don't know if you know this because I don't know how the 94 series went, but Mother Abigail was actually in Nebraska. Hemingford Home is in Nebraska.
Yes.
And then she was picked up by a group of our survivors and moved to Colorado, which is ultimately the boulder free zone that they're talking about, that they open in this series. So they're kind of, in this series, and I'm assuming it's for the sake of convenience, time, storytelling, they're just like, Mother Abigail's in Colorado, and that's where it all goes down.
Yeah. And I mean, that was such a large part of the original story.
Right, getting to Hemingford Home and her story. So I don't know in the original miniseries, but in the book, there's actually a fair amount of her story that gets told.
Yes.
And her story at Hemingford Home that gets told. So it's very interesting to have it all be like, oh no, it's all in Colorado and it all goes down there and it's all fine.
Yeah. And I mean, that comes later in the further episodes, but again, I feel like they've cut out so much of her character development. Because originally I was like, I really don't like Whoopi Goldberg for this role, but I realized it wasn't Whoopi. It was because they cut out so much of Mother Abigail's backstory that I was just like, that's why I don't care about her, is because I don't know that she's 98 years old and still bakes her own bread.
108.
Or 108 and still bakes her own bread. And I mean, just the scenes in the original of her sitting on her porch, strumming her guitar and singing, like, or like talking to God or things like that. Like, I just... And they cut a lot of the dream sequences that she's in out.
Well, and I even feel like, as far as I'm in, and again, I've only watched through episode 3, but I feel like so far they've cut out a whole lot of the God versus Satan, good versus evil.
Yes.
Okay, so even as far as you are, and you're through episode 4, that's not a big deal yet.
Yes.
Because I feel like that was a pretty big part of the book.
I feel like it was a big part of the series, and I think I even remember in the the last episode of the 4-part miniseries, the original, that I can't remember what station aired it, whether it was ABC, NBC, CBS, whatever. But they even told the makers of the show, the movie, that yeah, we're not going to let you crucify people on crosses. You're going to have to crucify them on, like, I can't remember, it was like X's or circles or something.
So,
but they were like, that's just a bit much for us.
I'm kind of shocked that they were able to do it in 6 hours. Because we're talking a 900-page book.
Well, and I am shocked at the amount of backstory that they have cut out thus far, in that they're doing this in 9 1-hour episodes. So they have 9 hours to tell this story, and they're cutting out all of this stuff that I loved from the previous. Like, is there something more that they're adding at the end that I don't know about because I haven't read the book?
I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I now officially have had enough of my bottle of wine. That we've covered your bad, right?
We have.
So it's my turn, right?
It is your turn.
So you brought this up, and I'm going to say it. Whoopi was my bad. And I actually really hate saying that because I love Whoopi Goldberg, but I can't see her as anybody other than Whoopi Goldberg. Like, I feel like this series would have been served a lot better if they had chosen
an unknown
or even a well-known actress who just could blend better. And by blending, I mean where you see the character and not the actress.
Yeah.
Because all I see is Whoopi Goldberg.
Yep.
Which I just feel like it doesn't serve the series well, and it doesn't serve Whoopi Goldberg well. I love her. She's great.
I said, I really thought it was because they have Whoopi Goldberg, but I feel like they also cut too much out of Mother Abigail's backstory.
You know, and who knows, maybe as we get further, because I have 6 episodes left, you have 5 episodes left. Maybe as we get further, we'll get more of Mother Abigail's story.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for me, that was my bad. I just was not able to see past, this is an actress, this is Whoopi Goldberg, where is Mother Abigail?
Yeah. Agreed. I absolutely agree.
Which I really love the way they're telling the story. And I don't even mind that they skipped over the whole Hemingford home is Nebraska. But I mind that I can't see anybody other than Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your ugly?
So my ugly is a bad ugly.
Of course it is.
But it's small. I will say that it's small, and I'm sure that it is a plot device for storytelling, but the one door malfunctions in the, like, class 4 CDC Army infectious
you're talking
disease.
About when Stu actually finally escapes?
No. The Army guy.
Like at the very end where we meet Campion and then he's on the run.
Yes.
Okay.
One door malfunctioning in this place that deals with, like, highly infectious diseases lets him escape this entire place. I'm like, okay, the one malfunctioning door should get him to the hallway. It should get him through no other doors, let alone outside of the building, outside of the compound. Like, I was just like, no. Like,
but then it goes back to stuff that you and I always talk about with The Walking Dead, which is, but if they did things logically, we wouldn't have a story.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. But I feel that it was handled a little better in the original.
Okay.
But that was also in 1994, which we probably didn't have quite as good infectious disease protocols. I don't know though, but it was a small, bad, ugly. I think they could have probably handled a little better, but in the interest of time, because they only have 9 hours instead of 6.
Right.
So that was my bad. What was your bad? I'm sorry, ugly.
Well, so my ugly was neither a good ugly nor a bad ugly, but I just want to say that this series is so triggering right now in this time because we are dealing with COVID. So when I first started watching it, I actually looked it up and I was like, when did they start planning this? And it actually started filming in 2019.
Yeah.
It was way before COVID was even a thing. And it actually wrapped like 3 or 4 days before things would have been shut down.
Yep.
In the March 2020 shutdowns.
Such a crazy, interesting timing.
It's completely creepy and it completely triggered me. In part, again, because I'm a healthcare worker, but also because I have been alone forever because of COVID. But the other thing is, and this goes back to my rating, gallons of snot. Do you think if COVID was as ugly as Captain Trips, like the snot and the tube neck, they actually refer to it as tube neck in the book. Do you think if COVID was that ugly, we might take it more seriously?
Oh, probably.
Because, right now, COVID is, maybe somebody who has long haulers. Maybe you've seen pictures of COVID toes. Maybe you've heard about somebody who's been intubated and died. But it's not real. It's not like seeing these huge numbers of bodies with horribly swollen necks and gallons of snot.
Well, and in this and in the original version, Captain Trips is so highly communicable and it's so quick acting. I mean, people are literally exposed to it and then like less than hours later. I mean, we're talking, sometimes in the span of minutes where they kind of develop a cough, and so, maybe with a highly virulent strain of COVID on its way that,
highly communicable. Not any more virulent, but highly communicable.
Sorry, wrong terminology.
Yeah, yeah.
No more deadly than the original
the current
version.
Yeah.
But in the movie, in The Stand, we see people develop these horrendous symptoms overnight and are literally dying in their beds at home with their families and everything. And and in the original version, like I said, it opens with a montage of people who literally keel over, at stoplights and at their desks, which highly resonated with me because I'm like, yeah, that's going to be me. I'm going to die at my desk, but it's going to be my home office,
I'm going to die at my desk.
I'm totally going to die.
I'm going to die in the middle of charting.
Yeah. But so, I mean, I think that's probably part of it that, it's so fast acting in the movie that, but one of the original things, and I have to point this out for anybody who is going to go back and watch the original like you are, there's a scene where, it's not Stu, it's Larry.
Okay.
The guy who
we'll get into Larry in future episodes.
Yeah, but in the original version, I have to say that he does call back to LA. He's in New York or New Jersey, and he calls back to LA to a friend, and the person is saying, "Don't come here. It's a zoo here. It's crazy. This Captain Trips has, people. The hospitals are filling up, and people are going crazy, and blah blah blah." And he's like, well, over here they're saying it's all bunk, that there's nothing wrong. It's not that bad. And I'm like,
boy, doesn't that sound familiar?
Wow, right?
Okay, not to do a HIPAA violation because I'm obviously not going to say anything more than I had a patient, no gender specified, with COVID symptoms, no COVID symptoms specified, with a concerning physical examination, no physical findings specified, who told me it was a hoax and we're being lied to, and there was no way in hell he, she, or it was getting a COVID test.
I don't even understand why not to test. I mean, like, that's like saying, like, sure, I have every symptom of strep throat, but I'm not going to get a strep throat test. Like,
so literally
why?
within like 24 hours, I got the news about my friend having COVID long haulers. And I was like, I just really want to go back and crotch punch that person.
Well, and there recently before, armed insurrection took over the news cycle, there was actually a man, I think it was in Florida, who was a COVID denier and an anti-masker, and he was hospitalized, and I think he was just off of his ventilator, and he was saying, this is not a hoax, it's not a joke, this thing is real, you need to mask up, you need to take this seriously. And, he's struggling to breathe while he's saying all of this, and he's like, I was an idiot, and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm just like, God.
Oh, yeah, there are literally people who are being intubated who are protesting that it's not COVID and it's a hoax right before they get intubated.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I'm like, morgues are filling up. People are not, I mean, it's one of the things that you see in, I can't remember if it was I think it's in the first episode of The Stand, but, Franny having to bury her own father because...
It's in the first episode. I don't know if it's in the first episode of the OG series, but it's in the first episode of this one, too.
And Harold's saying, well, my family's sitting in a mortuary, I don't know when.
Right, and they'll never get buried, basically. Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my God, that's like straight out of reality now. Oh.
Okay, I think we're soundly into writing potpourri.
I really do not have much. I have to tell you that I have very little notes, but a lot of feelings. I think my only other actual note, because we've already talked about Fran and Harold's more contentious and dark relationship in this series, the episode or the scene where Harold is in the town and he finds the crashed police car.
Right. Yeah.
There's a sign somewhere, and I couldn't find it on my rewatch, but there's a sign somewhere that references Derry, which is the town that is always referenced in Stephen King novels and movies.
Oh, really? Like Derry?
Yes.
Okay. It's been a long time.
I have to say that when I look at that antique shop that he got the typewriter out of, the only thing my mind goes to is the other Stephen King novel/movie, Needful Things.
Which I have not seen, but I read, and it was a really long time ago.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because, like, so much of Stephen King stuff takes place, like, in Maine and on the East Coast, and there's, like, such great antiquing or whatever.
Everything is in Maine.
Yeah, and so... like every time I see an antique shop like on the East Coast, I don't know why, I just think Needful Things.
Interesting. I may have to go back and read that at some point. Well, I will tell you what was really interesting for me, and what's been interesting for me in terms of reading the book, is that there are tons of anachronisms. So the book was actually written way before I started reading Stephen King, like back in the 70s, I want to say like 77, 78. I actually had to look it up. The version that I'm reading right now has lots of anachronisms, like stuff that wasn't real, stuff that wasn't on our radar in the 70s. So I'm wondering, and I've tried to do some research. I haven't done tons of research. Sorry, I've had a little bit of wine now.
You said anachronisms without stuttering, so you're fine. I mean, don't go driving or anything, but you're fine.
No, not planning on driving, planning on walking up the stairs and going to bed. Anyway, so there's a lot of stuff that is not appropriate for a book that was written before 1980 that happens in the series and happens in the updated version of the book that I'm reading. So I think I'm reading the expanded version that was kind of reworked. The DVDs, obviously that, the guy who's collecting DVDs so he can do a movie. Tom Cruise's infamy, and Harold, practicing that pose that Tom Cruise has with the big smile.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff just in this first episode, but also in the version of the book, as far as I've read so far, that is stuff that just is not appropriate for as early as the first version was printed. So that's been super interesting to me. I need to do more research and see when the expanded version was printed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
God, that made me think of something and now I lost it.
So I will go on and maybe you will think about it again.
Maybe.
So there is a scene where Harold is on the boardwalk in their town in Maine, and I want to say it's Algonquin. And the announcer on the boardwalk, it's 4th of July, is actually saying, "I've never let fear of the flu or sniffles keep me from," and she's basically saying 4th of July celebrations.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, oh my God, is that prescient or what? Because I still have people who are like, well, I never let fear of the flu keep me from celebrating New Year's Eve with everybody.
And I'm just like, I on my rewatch, I'm sure I heard it on my original watch, but on my rewatch, I was just like, I cannot believe this was filmed before
COVID.
I
know.
And I remember what I was going to say. So you were saying that a lot of stuff that we're seeing, it
anachronisms.
Yeah, wasn't around in when the book was written. So, in the original movie in 1994, they were saying that Captain Trips is a strain that we haven't seen of the swine flu. And I was like,
oh, how interesting.
Crap. We had the swine flu way back then.
I think it's been around for a while. I think it's been around for a while, but I mean, I don't know.
Well, and of course, the coronavirus, we call it the novel coronavirus because this is a new strain that we have not seen of the coronavirus. So the coronavirus is, there are different strains of it that have been around for a while, and this is just a new one. And so,
and that's what I keep telling people when they talk about the vaccine, because SARS and MERS are coronaviruses.
Right.
So we actually have been researching this vaccine and this virus for several years.
Yes, and we have just recently in the past year poured an obscene amount of money into the research of it.
Amen, little sister, you are totally right, and that's why we now have a vaccine.
Trust me, I am an accountant for public health. I work a lot of hours trying to make sure that all of that money will be accounted for in the coming years when we are audited, because it's an obscene amount of money.
That is so funny.
I mean, we are developing new systems. We already have VacTrack, which is a way to
I use
track
that
vaccines
every day, practically.
We are developing a new system to track vaccines specifically related for coronavirus. So, I mean,
I have got to tell you, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have my coronavirus vaccine record tattooed on my forehead.
Oh, but then you're going to have people that are all scared about how that's going to be some sort of like,
it's my deformed DNA. Ah!
Well, like it's supposed to be some sort of like super pass or something that it's like,
my microchip.
Oh, what?
It's my microchip.
Right? But it's like, people are going to be like, oh, I don't need to wear a mask. I've had the vaccine. It's like, no, you still need to wear a mask.
Right.
Like,
doesn't work that way.
Just wear a mask. Like, it's fine.
Okay, Harold.
Mm-hmm.
Harold's sister is horrible. She pretty much explains why Harold is a horrible person. But Harold's mom actually seems pretty decent in the 3 seconds we get with her. So I think Harold is just one of those broken people for whatever reason.
Yeah.
There are people who are sociopaths. There are people who are truly messed up regardless of how they were raised. Wow, I am really starting to sound like I've had that half bottle of wine. And I think Harold is one of those people.
And so we talked about this previously on the Real Housewives podcast because
Which
we talked
I will
about
post tomorrow.
We talked about the movie Three Identical Strangers, and
right.
It was that turned out to be a study of nature versus nurture. Are you born with these qualities, or are you raised to have these qualities? And it turns out it's a little bit of both. And so it's kind of like one of those, if Harold had been in a nice family with like Fran's dad or something, he might have turned out to be an okay guy, but because he had like kind of a bad family, it just enhanced his sociopathic qualities.
Okay, so not to be a giant Swifterino, but I am. There is a lyric from her album Folklore earlier this year. If one thing had been different, would everything have been different? And that's what I thought of when I thought of Harold. I thought, if there had been something in his family or his life that had been different, would he have been a different person?
I think so. There are serial killers out there where I think you can actually trace it back to
one event
or one singular influence. Specifically like Richard Ramirez's uncle was a huge influence, and if his uncle had died in Vietnam instead of coming back and teaching Richard Ramirez how to skin people or whatever.
Ew.
Yeah.
I obviously need to know more about Richard Ramirez. Not going to happen tonight, but obviously need to know more.
So, I honestly think that, maybe maybe Harold was beat up one too many times, or maybe if, his sister had gotten her wedding party or whatever,
she was
and
awful.
Moved away, it wouldn't have been the straw that broke the camel's back, Was she in the book?
She was, but only very briefly.
Okay.
She was very briefly in the series as well, so...
We see 0% of Harold's family in the original movie.
I would say that the amount that she gets in the new series is pretty equivalent to what she gets in the book.
See, and that's so interesting because, like I said, I'm having a hard time because they're not telling the backstory that I am accustomed to. So obviously they are adding some of the backstory that cut out of the original version. So I think that's probably a lot where my bias lies.
So speaking of backstory that's not in the original version, what is really interesting for me and what I actually have appreciated is that they have updated a lot. So including the internet, including social media, including the conspiracy theories that are promulgated on social media.
Mm-hmm.
That's been very appropriate and very interesting, especially in light of COVID-19.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like you said, I think, between the writing of the book and the filming of the 1994 version, they had updated it to that point. And so it only stands to reason that they should update it for now. And maybe in 26 years we'll see another one if we're all around then.
Right.
If Captain Trips doesn't wipe us all out by then.
Okay, I have to be honest. I looked up, are guinea pigs really indicators for the flu? And I found a 2006 study that used them as a model for flu transmission.
Huh. Because
apparently they are.
That was in the original. And what year did you say that study was?
2006. So it may have been in the book. It's not a ginormous thing that sticks out from my reread of the book.
Huh.
So,
well, it was around in 1994.
I need to apologize to all of the biters. I think I'm a little bit into my cups.
So it was around in 1994 because that is something from the original movie too.
So it must have been in the book as well.
Yeah.
It just didn't stick out giantly in my brain. So I thought it was really interesting that they mentioned Redmond's dog, because in the book they make a point of dogs, horses, and I want to say another domesticated species, but I can't remember what, are impacted by Captain Trips. Mm-hmm. Cats are not.
Stephen King has a thing with cats.
Cats are evil AF, which is why cats are not. I know this because Greaves is in my life. I don't know if I told you this, but she has decided that she can sleep on the bed now.
Aww.
Only when the dogs are not upstairs.
Does she try and steal your breath?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, because the dogs are upstairs by then. So,
okay.
No. She's pretty much like, really? I have to get off the bed because you're letting them in? Really? Are you serious?
That's funny. I feel like that's... So, I want to say it was a short story called Cat's Eye, but I can't find it on...
I want to say he wrote a book with his son called... Or maybe his wife called Cat's Eye.
Well, and it was in the movie Firestarter.
Oh, okay.
With Drew Barrymore.
Yeah.
But I feel like it was a side story that was told during the movie about cats cats have long been accused of stealing the breath of babies, and people always thought it's because baby's breath smells like milk, and so cats are always seen like sitting on babies' chests.
And I've seen that before. I mean, I've heard that before.
And of course, in the, I don't know if it's in the book, but in the movie, it actually turns out to be this like evil little gnome creature, and the cats are actually protecting the children.
I totally remember that.
Yeah, I do too. And then of course, Pet Sematary Church comes back evil.
The cat.
Yeah, the cat.
Yes.
So Stephen King has a thing with kids and cats and cornfields and antique shops.
Okay, so Cat's Eye with Stephen King is a 1985 movie with Drew Barrymore.
Yep. I very, very specifically remember that.
Okay, so the other thing I want to mention about this episode is that I loved Dr. Ellis. I know he was sort of a villain, but I loved him anyway.
Less of a villain than the original.
Oh, it'll be... I'm really actually looking forward to watching the OG.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Cobb, I don't think that was the name in the book, but there's a character that's very similar. Is that character in the OG?
So I only remember one. Was it? No, there was two doctors. There was one doctor who was kind of, he wasn't as bad as the
as Cobb.
Yeah, there was one that was worse than the other. God, I cannot remember.
So Cobb, whoever Cobb is in the book, and I can't remember the name, actually nearly kills Redmond. Actually nearly kills Stu in the book, and is pretty close in the series as well. So I'm assuming that's the Batto in the OG series as well.
Yeah, not big enough of a part to have a memorable
to
name.
stick out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that Bryan Cranston, aka Walter White, is the voice of the president in this series.
Uncredited.
Which is completely cool.
It is.
I still need to go back and rewatch Breaking Bad because it was so good.
I need to go back and watch Breaking Bad.
Oh my god, it was so good. I mean, I never got into Better Call Saul, which I probably need to, but Breaking Bad was so good.
And what's funny is I watched the very first episode of Better Call Saul. I think it was because it was one of those where it was on after The Walking Dead, but before
Oh, you're right. It is an AMC series.
Yeah.
So you felt like you were being forced to watch Better Call Saul.
Yeah, it was after Walking Dead, but before Talking Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Do I have anything else? I don't think Franny's suicide attempt was in the book. I mean, I'm far enough out from that part in the book now, but that I can't totally remember it, but I don't think she tried that in the book.
And not in the 1994 movie. She was so far from that sort of character. She was very light and happy and bubbly. I mean, she cried when her dad died, but other than that, she was fine.
I never got the feeling that she was light and happy, but I got the feeling that she was very committed to her pregnancy.
Yeah.
So, I don't think that happened in the book either.
And maybe it's just because, like, part of it, but the only time that you really see her sad, at least, through the first part, there is a time later when she's sad, and we won't get into it yet. But is really when her dad dies. I mean, she's always like smiling and she's kind of a people pleaser where she's always trying to smooth over the situation and make everyone happy. And, and maybe it's just, that's how Molly Ringwald played it because it's Molly Ringwald, but
I love when she pins the medals on her dad because she does that in the book too.
I think in the original movie too. Yeah.
They do have that episode where they are listening to records together. And I do also want to say that some of the music in this episode is very much like Bear McCreary's original music for Walking Dead, which is super interesting to me.
Huh.
Yeah. Some of the music is very spare and very mournful, which is very much like McCreary's music.
And not anything like the and it's a little tough because you're talking 4 episodes versus 9, but in episode 1 of the original Stand, you have you start out with Blue Oyster Cult, Don't Fear the Reaper,
which is perfect.
And then you have ZZ Top's Sharp Dressed Man. And Crowded Houses, Don't Dream It's Over.
Oh, I love that.
And a song written by Stephen King, performed by Al Cooper.
Is this the Baby Can You Dig Your Man?
Yep.
So that plays a very big part in the book, so I'm surprised it's not playing as big a part in the series.
I feel like it's not the same song, but Larry does have a hit song. It's not the same. And
dude, we're gonna talk more about Larry.
Yeah, and I don't feel like it plays as big a part in the movie as it did in the original. So, but I mean, Blue Oyster Cult, ZZ Top, and Crowded House, like, how can you not love the original soundtrack? At least for episode 1.
Well, and they've done a pretty good job with the soundtrack, and I thought, CBS must have some really good music rights.
Right. And that was kind of brought up when I said that they did not use one of their best lines from the original.
Right. With Flag.
Yeah. Pleased to meet you. Hope you guessed my name.
Right.
Which was a Rolling Stone.
Right.
Sympathy for the Devil. Maybe I don't know. Like, are song lyrics like notes, like where you can only have so many?
I think they're totally protected.
Okay, yeah. So maybe they couldn't get the rights to.
I'm sure.
Sympathy for the Devil.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because they did the Axl Rose version for Interview with the Vampire. So you would think that that's practically open source music at this point.
Yeah, it's old enough, you'd think.
Yeah.
I just want to say it really bummed me out when Dr. Ellis got Captain Trips. Because I liked that character a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only other thing I want to say, and oh my god, we've gone for almost 2 hours, is that Redmond actually is the one who meets General Starkey in the series. It's repurposed from the book. There is actually a military man who is under General Starkey's command who has that scene with him in the book. So it's a little different in the book. Yeah, and I'm probably going to be comparing the series throughout to the book because I've recently been rereading the book.
Well, and I mean, that's sort of your role, and my role has been to compare it to the original series.
Yep. Yeah.
So I have to say, if you liked this version, I wouldn't drop this version to go and immediately watch the original version, because I think it'll probably be confusing at this point. But definitely follow it up with the 1994 version if you liked this one, or even if you didn't. $4.99 on Vudu. You can't beat that for 6 hours of entertainment. And with your 30% off your original purchase, it's $3.66.
I'm super glad we did this. Thank you for humoring me. I'm looking forward to continuing it. Sometimes it's kind of hard to dig through and find more zombie stuff that I'm really interested in, because The Walking Dead is really my love as far as the zombie genre. So I'm glad we're doing this.
I think, you can count on me to always do a horror movie, I
promise I won't drink as much Merlot as next time, as I have this time.
Yeah, no rom-coms for this girl. You can always count on me to podcast a horror series.
So funny. So when are we doing The Boys in the Band for Real Housewives?
We should shoot for tomorrow. I have not watched it,
really?
But
okay.
I do need to watch it, but
I haven't watched it either.
I'm looking forward to it because based on who stars in it, I have a very big recommendation for everybody, whether I like the movie or not.
So we will tentatively look at tomorrow, which means I really need to edit and get our last Real Housewives posted. I will do that in the morning. I am literally going upstairs and going to bed after we finish this.
Oh my God. I need to post this picture because I have drank almost this entire growler of beer and I feel nothing.
Okay,
and when I say I feel nothing,
your liver is so much better trained than mine.
When I say I feel nothing, it's not just because I feel nothing. It's because I don't feel the alcohol.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. I have had half a bottle of Merlot and I'm like, I'm a little embarrassed to be podcasting right now.
My personality is just naturally 2 beers in.
All right. Oh. But in the meantime,
just remember,
take it one dead day at a time. All right. Have a great week, everybody.
Have a good week.
We will see you in 1 week to cover episode 2 of The Stand. Bye. Ugh.